When confronted with the various versions of the problem of evil, there's one popular strategy that's often used to try and explain it. Take a listen.
Is God good? If he is, why is there suffering and evil? Let's assume for the moment that God is all-powerful. This means that God can do anything that is logically possible. So he can create galaxies and subatomic particles and rainforests and you. But God cannot do what is logically impossible. He cannot make a square circle or a one-ended stick. So can God make a rock so big that he can't lift it? No. So what if, when God created human beings, he wanted them to be free? Freedom's a good thing.
All right, let's stop it there. Why is freedom such a good thing? Well, it might seem intuitively obvious to most of us that freedom in a general sense is a good thing. But I can tell you that this video has certain conceptions of freedom baked into it.
Here we go.
Is God good?
That particular video was put together by a friend of mine, Jim Zangmeister, who went to our seminary in Charlotte, Southern Evangelical Seminary.
In other words, based on the endorsements, the kind of freedom it's talking about is presumably libertarian freedom, a type of freedom that is incompatible with determinism, as well as moral freedom, the freedom to choose between good and evil. Keep this in mind as we move forward.
But if humans are to be free, they cannot be forced to obey God. Because freedom without choice is like a square circle. It's a logical contradiction. No choice, no freedom. God didn't want robots. He wanted real people. The first humans endowed with the awesome power of free choice abused their freedom. The tragic consequences of their bad choice and our bad choices ripple across the world.
Very heartwarming. Very logically and morally consistent of God to set up a system wherein the failures of the first pair infect the moral dispositions of their offspring. I'm tempted to ramble on about this, but that's not what this video is about. Philosopher Wes Morriston summarizes why the idea that moral freedom is some great good is a big problem for many Christians. Many Christian philosophers believe that it is a great good that human beings are free to choose between good and evil. So good, indeed, that God is justified in putting up with a great many evil choices for the sake of it. But many of the same Christian philosophers also believe that God is essentially good in every possible world. Unlike his sinful human creatures, God cannot choose between good and evil. In that sense, he is not morally free. It is not easy to see how to fit these two theses into a single coherent package. If moral freedom is such a great good in human beings, why is it not a grave defect in God that he lacks it? And if the lack of moral freedom does not detract in any way from God's greatness, would it not have been better for us not to have it? Put another way, or to borrow the title of the paper that this quote is coming from, what's so good about moral freedom?
The main point of that video, as you saw, is that evil exists because we have free will, which is the only way that love could exist. So God gives us free will so we could love, but it also opens up the possibility for evil. And we do evil, we sin.
A common response is that free will is required for moral responsibility or even love. But is moral freedom required for this? Even if we assume libertarian freedom in a general sense is, it doesn't follow that the genuine possibility of choosing evil is required for moral responsibility and love to exist. After all, God can be morally praised for his actions and can love, right? Which begs the question, why didn't God do a better job of creating us in his own image? Presumably, we could have a freedom analogous to the kind that God has, all without the presence or possibility of evil. Why not? But no. On most versions of theism, God gives us a subpar version of libertarian freedom, with the threat of an eternal hell baked in if we don't use it properly. Speaking of an eternal hell, Christians, if you will, allow me, a mere atheist, to tell you the truth about hell.